AM or on YouTube, channel RJAM News. To all Teleradio Bandido viewers and listeners, you can now watch Teleradio Bandido on our new YouTube channel, RJAM News. Hit the subscribe button and like the video. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified when a new video gets uploaded. Don't miss out on our dynamite lineup.
Hello and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DZRJ and RJTV. My name is Eric Lecain. I'm joined with Lolly Tolentino. We're here to talk about stories going on around the world, some of the most interesting things that happened this week, things that our viewers have sent in to us, questions that we're going to be discussing here on the show. Now, don't forget to listen to us and watch us there on Sky Cable on channel 224 and listen to us on the radio on AM 810 on your radio dial. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Now, Lolly Tolentino, how has your week been? I know it's been an interesting time this week, especially with the MECQ changes and so forth that are going on. So how are you coping?
Well, I always cope with everything. ECQ, MECQ, I always survive. So for me, it's not a problem because I am used to it. Whatever they put the status of, let's say, of Metro Manila, I'm fine. I'm good. What about yourself?
You know, I'm doing okay because Lolly, you sent me this video of this cat chasing the other cat's tail, and so that has made my day much better. Anytime anybody sends cat videos, somehow you just feel better about things, no matter how bad they are. And I'm looking forward. Sweet. You know, we're going to have to get out and get some sushi in a restaurant now because, as I think you said before, you can have 10%. How much can you have inside a restaurant? 10%?
Yes, 10% inside.
Okay. So if
it got to be early so you can get the inside so you can have air condition. But if not, you will be sitting outside.
Yeah.
With a heat.
I know about sitting outside because I've sat outside at Starbucks many times during the MECQ and drinking my hot drink and sweating there in the sun. But yes, we'll have to go to a restaurant soon. We'll get a restaurant that holds 20 people, and since it only has 10%, that's just me and you. So we'll be in the restaurant by ourselves.
Very good.
How nice would that be?
Be great.
Well, listen, Lolly, we have a lot of things to talk about this week. There's so much going on in the world now. Now, what have our viewers? What kind of questions have they sent in today? Because our viewers are very smart, very intelligent, and they watch the news. So I'm interested to see what it is they're asking to us to talk about this week.
All right, let's start first with the international question from Gigi of Mandaluyong. What do you think about the possible mysterious energy attack near White House? Who do you think behind it? Should America be scared?
All right. Well, this started a while back with these weird energy surges that are aimed at hurting U.S. personnel, like people in the CIA and people in the State Department. Some people will just start having ear popping and vertigo and then pounding headaches and then nausea, sometimes these ear piercing noises. And then later they end up with brain damage. So down in Cuba in 2016, there was a big incident where a whole lot of Americans all of a sudden had these unexplained symptoms. And there's also been incidences in China and in Russia. People speculated at one time that there was this weapon that can emit these microwaves from far distances and that maybe the Russians were behind it. Maybe the Chinese, but you know, it's all speculation. But these have been the reason that this is big in the news this week is because some of these things are happening on U.S. soil and right next to the White House. In that big Oval Lawn area, there was a National Security Council official all of a sudden had these symptoms. So, and then another official who was walking their dog all of a sudden had the same symptoms. And there was even an incident in Miami, and they're calling it the Havana Syndrome. Because remember, it started down in Cuba in 2016, where a lot of Americans started getting these things, and that's when it made it to the mainstream. Now, they believe that they've known about this for a while, and they've kind of kept it under wraps. because they're trying to figure out what it is. But what kind of weapon can do something like this?
Right, right. Wow, that's kind of scary. It's like virus, something that you don't see,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it's just so, what a great weapon it would be, though. Is you just
Yeah.
point it towards somebody and then all of a sudden they feel sick and then they get brain damage. Um,
Yeah. Wow.
and, remember back when, I mean, you and I are old enough to remember when microwaves kind of came into existence. Because when we were young, there weren't microwaves. And then microwaves came into existence and everybody was afraid of them because they're like, oh, am I going to
Right.
get radiation poisoning if I stand too close to the microwave? And if there's a crack in the microwave or there's a seal that's broken, is the microwave going to come out and hit me in the face and make my face melt off? And it turned out that was not true because microwaves don't really emit that much energy. But this is kind of the same thing, except, it emits, a whole lot of this kind of energy. And I think, some people are talking about, in the old days, the Soviet Union was working on something. They were working on a device that would do something like this. And people are wondering, maybe that device is still around, or maybe somebody got it or bought it or stole it, and they have it now. And the only thing that's interesting is it's not small. It can't be small. It is. It has to be big. So it's in a truck. But the interesting thing is that this technology, it exists. We just haven't used it or haven't. I mean, maybe they have. Maybe it's secret. Maybe we don't even know. And maybe they even have one of these in the United States, and they're trying to figure out, what this, who is moving this thing around, and can they find it? But just what a bizarre story, and the fact that it is so close to the White House. And the second thing is, what if this thing really exists and they make it really powerful, so they can shoot it through a window?
Wow, that would
could
be
really hurt a lot of people.
scary.
The dude that was in China, who had this same thing, he had permanent brain damage. They looked into his, they did a CAT scan of him, and he had all kinds of damage there. So it's going to be, it's just one of those things. It's like, what is going to be the next latest, greatest weapon that we can develop?
You know what? I don't want to even think about it. We still have the virus to, take care of.
We
Now,
got
there's
enough
another,
problems without dealing with a microwave, like a microwave energy blaster laser.
I know, right? Okay. You know what? For me, my microwave, I can just use it for heating my food. That's all I can say about microwave. Anyway, let's go to Jimmy of Antipolo. Okay. President Biden first address to Congress. How significant and what are the important points he made in his speech? I'm sure you watch it.
Yes, of course. Yeah, this was the biggest speech of Biden's presidency so far. He did it in front of the joint session of Congress, but there was only around 200 people there because of the, COVID restrictions. But still, It was the full house of the Congress. But probably the interesting thing about the speech, the most interesting thing, was that it was completely overshadowed by who was sitting behind him. Because in these presidential speeches that they give, and I think, they give one every year, behind him are the two people that sit in succession to the presidency. And one is the vice president and the other one is the Speaker of the House. And this was the first time that the two people sitting behind the president were women.
Yes. Two powerful women of the United States.
Two powerful women. So if Joe Biden keeled over in the middle of his speech, then the succession would go down to Kamala Harris and to Nancy Pelosi, who would be next in line. So so that was an interesting thing. But what was I think stuck out to me in the beginning was the fact that Biden used the word we as opposed to Trump. Trump always, when he made speeches, he used the word me. It was all about me, how great I am, and how great a job I'm doing for the country. But Biden, he kind of switched gears on it and was like, we the people. It's the people that make the government, not just me. So I thought that was an interesting part. He had a very good part about how kids will soon be able to hug their grandparents instead of looking at them through a window. that the schools are going to be coming open this year, and that the virus will be over in the U.S. in the next coming months.
That would be great.
Which is something that we didn't foresee last year or even, this past summer. One other thing that he went on about was jobs. Almost every subject in his speech was connected to jobs. He used the word jobs: internet increases, infrastructure, climate change, childcare. Everything had something to do with jobs. He said the word jobs 43 times.
Really? Oh, wow.
Pushed this $2 trillion infrastructure plan and his broad green initiative, all to get jobs. Kept saying jobs, jobs.
Yeah, but that's the very important thing, actually. The moment you start the infrastructure, that's where you start creating jobs for people.
Yeah.
And that can start to turn around the economy, eventually.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing. That's what's going to turn it around, is people getting back to work, and then the economy starts to pull back, and then, start to come, spill out forward a little bit because everybody's got money to spend. And, right now there are so many people out of work. Not just in the United States, but all over the world, especially in the Philippines. And just got to get people back to work and get the economy rolling again. In fact, what's interesting is Joe Biden talked a little bit about trickle-down economics. And we've talked about that here on the show before, that trickle-down economics does not work. He said that a couple times in his speech, that these huge tax cuts that they're giving to the rich so they can create more work, better things for the working class and build their companies and give more jobs and give it back to the people, that has never worked. Because when these people make the rich get tax cuts and they have more money, what do they do with the money? They go and buy yachts and they buy big houses on the beach. They don't really give it back to the people. And Reagan tried this and it didn't work. Trump tried it and it really didn't work. So he's saying that, we can't do that anymore. He also talked about guns, which is a very touchy subject in the United States because, we don't want them taking away our guns because we want to be able to shoot people. So, he talked about that. He said, that 2/3 of the people in the United States actually believe that gun reform is important. And the reason is because Americans keep shooting each other.
Yeah. For the last, say 3 months, 4 months, we've seen a lot of, gun thing happening in America.
Yeah. It's like the latest greatest thing is to walk into a place and just start shooting people. And, that trend is getting worse. And people go, well, it's not guns that are killing people, it's people that are killing people. It's people with guns that are killing people. If you took the guns away from some people or made it a little more difficult to get a gun, you can't run into a crowded room with a fork and start sticking people. It takes a while to kill somebody. Or if you have a knife or a sword or a drill, I don't know, but a gun is the easiest way to kill a person. You can kill a lot of people at once. And I just say, in my thoughts, and I've said this before, just make it harder to get a gun, and maybe that will save a couple people's lives.
Yeah. Well, here I know for a fact that you have to have a training before you can even buy guns. Although I know there's a lot of people who used to buy it just like buying candies in the store, but I think people should be educated in handling their guns. Because I know how to use it, but then I went to training. Okay, so, but then I'm still scared to fire a gun to people. Why will I do that? Maybe that will be my, I can use for my defense. Only for your defense, but not for me to kill people. I think Americans should learn that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you go get trained with a gun so you can kill people better. No, but the last
That's
thing.
That's not my point.
The last thing about Joe Biden, and then we'll move on, was he talked a little bit about voting rights, which is a big issue in the United States right now because they're trying to, honestly, keep black people from voting. That's just what it looks like. And black people definitely tip the scales when it comes to voting because they tend to vote a certain way. And They were saying that if everyone voted in America, if everybody had the right to vote and everybody voted, the Republicans would rarely win anything. And if they switched to the popular vote, so the popular vote is who picks the president, Republicans would never be another Trump, because the United States would never vote for another guy like that. So that's, they keep trying to change these things. So Biden was saying, you know what, we need to stop this. We need to make it fair so that everybody has the right to vote. And he also touched a little bit on police reform, because, we had this issue with George Floyd and the verdict, which you've already talked about on the show. And of course, he had to say something about that. So he did, touch on that a little bit, which I thought was good.
Yeah, I think he made a good speech actually, and I think, or like you said, the word "we," I admire that, because it's so if somebody like your former president said I, me, myself.
Yeah.
So he's the opposite one. Okay.
Yeah.
This Biden is the we guy.
Trump was all about Trump, all about me. Let me just talk about me, what I'm doing, how great I am. And so sometimes it's good to have a little something different than that.
Yep. All right. Let's go to Gina of Malate. Do you think FBI raid on Giuliani's place unfair according to Trump?
Well, all right. So, as you know, we love to talk about Giuliani here on the show. From his press conference at the Four Seasons Hotel. I mean, of course, the Four Seasons lawn care and the adult sex shop next door, to him being duped by the new Borat movie into putting his hands down his pants with this young girl in the room, to the hair dye running down the side of his face during the press conference, to the, massive release of gas that he had in the courtroom that made everybody just stop and laugh. Giuliani is the main star of the Trump circus. He's been around for a while, and every time I can't believe they just keep letting him go on TV. But now he's landed himself in some trouble, like some real trouble. And he did some crazy stuff and he said some crazy stuff when he was Trump's lawyer. But now this whole thing that happened in the Ukraine, when he went over to the Ukraine to dig up dirt on Joe Biden, and he ended up getting the ambassador to Ukraine fired. So basically what he did was he lobbied a foreign government, and you can't do that. That is illegal. Yeah. So
he knows that. He's a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean,
he did that for Trump.
I wonder if he knows it, because he doesn't seem all that smart when it comes to being a lawyer. But I know he was before, but I don't know. Once he joined up with Trump, he seemed to have lost his mind. But this lobbying thing that he did is highly illegal, and this has led to Giuliani getting his apartment in New York searched by federal investigators. They broke in the morning and took apart his apartment. They went into his office at the exact same time. You know how they do these things at the exact same times, early in the morning, right. And they took everything apart. They took his phones, they took his computers, they took his laptop, they took everything. And a lot of people are worried. A lot of people are worried in Trump's inner circle because Giuliani knew stuff. And they're wondering how stupid he might have been to leave some of that incriminating or those phone messages on his phone and let the FBI take a look at them.
Wow. And it's legal, right? Because there's a search warrant. They can really do that.
I mean, this is, people keep saying that, it's the White House doing this. They are, this is payback from Biden for what Giuliani tried to do to him. But the White House says, no, we're not involved in this in any way. Although they had to get a warrant, and the warrant had to come from like the deputy attorney general. It had to come from high up.
Yes.
So, it's going to be interesting how it plays out, because I think they already had Giuliani before. They knew he lobbied in a foreign government. They know they've got him on this, but what they want to do is get everybody else. They want to get all the other people that are involved in this. So they got his phone, and I'm sure it took a lot to get this, and to get this warrant to go in and search Giuliani's place. And so they must have enough evidence, in fact, probably a lot of evidence on him, to be able to get this thing to go in and take his phones. And You know, the interesting thing is that this is not the only problem that Giuliani has. He's being sued by the Dominion voting machine company because
right.
Giuliani came out and
A lot
said
of money, huh?
that they were, that they had, manipulated the machines and all that. They sued him for $1 billion, like $1 billion.
Yes,
Now,
I
Giuliani
remember
doesn't have $1 billion, but they sued him. So Giuliani's having a lot of issues. He's also under problems with this stuff that went on in Georgia. Saying that Trump won the election and that Georgia cheated. And then the things he said right before the insurrection that happened in Washington, where the people stormed the building of Congress, where Giuliani went up there and said, this is, I can't remember exact words he said, but something like, we need to fight, or this is war, or something like that. So Giuliani's got himself in some rough water hanging out there with Trump.
That's his problem. So do you think he will turn himself into, or he might spill the beans somewhere?
I think when it comes down to if Giuliani is facing jail time, I think he will cough up dirt on everybody. I think he will turn on Trump and turn on everybody. I believe, because right now Trump has no power. Trump can't do anything. He can't get you off. Before he could get you off, and he did. He got all his friends off who, got put in jail, and it was a bunch of them. But if Giuliani goes to jail, Trump's he doesn't have any power to get him out now. So I think that when it comes down to it, we'll see. But I'm sure they're pulling all kinds of interesting information off of these phones and laptops. And when it comes down to it, I think Giuliani's going to spill the beans, and a lot of people are going to be in trouble.
He's going to spill the beans at the same time sing a song.
Yeah.
All right.
Those beans are gonna spill.
Maybe the song would be "Release Me, Please Release Me."
Release me, like he did in the courtroom with all that air in his stomach. Anyway.
Okay. All right, then go to Mary Chris of Cainta. Wondering why Al-Qaeda promised to make war against U.S. after Biden pulled out of Afghanistan. Isn't it smart for U.S. to pull out on the 20th year of hell?
Al-Qaeda has been talking about retaliation for the death of Osama bin Laden for 10 years now. I mean, they're always going to retaliate against the United States. That never died down. They just didn't do anything because, they've lost a lot of stuff. They lost their territories. They've been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And you didn't hear much from them. And then all of a sudden, in the last week, there's a bunch of waves coming from Al-Qaeda now, and it's kind of unclear as to why, but I think it's, of course it has something to do with the fact that the U.S. is giving up in Afghanistan. And,
yeah, I think so.
Al-Qaeda sees it as a way as deflect from all the losses that they've had in the recent years and how people don't think that much about them anymore. And I think they're calling it, what they're trying to do is they're saying, see, we win. We beat the United States back, and the United States is now having to leave because, we have beaten them. And of course, that's not true, but it makes great propaganda. And when the United States leaves Afghanistan, it's going to leave a giant window open for Al-Qaeda to get back into full swing and get their things going again. Now, let's just say, one of the reasons that the United States left Afghanistan was they made a deal with the Taliban. And part of the deal was that Taliban says, well, we're not going to have anything to do with Al-Qaeda anymore. Okay, do you believe that, Lolly? Do you believe that the Taliban is really not going to have anything? Now, supposedly, the Taliban while they were in negotiations with the United States, they were talking to Al-Qaeda at the same time, working out deals with them at the same time. So, as far as
they're trying to play cards right by talking to both sides. So whichever, okay, it's like if you are running for president, Eric, and then there are people okay, somebody will support you, but I will support the other one, or something like that. It's gonna be a win-win situation for them. I'm sure they do. They talk to both.
Yeah, I mean, people calling it the biggest scam. It's the biggest scam in the Middle East that the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban have got together and put this whole thing. And what about ISIS? ISIS was the leader for a long time, and Al-Qaeda's no. We are still the ISIS has done some pretty spectacular things in the last couple of years in Europe. They didn't do anything as spectacular as 9/11, which Al-Qaeda claimed that they did. I still have my doubts about how much involvement they really had in that. But, that was the most spectacular terrorist attack. But I think that, yes, when the U.S. leaves Afghanistan, the Afghani government will fold. I think that the corruption and so forth that's going on there, I think the Taliban will take over, and the Taliban can't be trusted I'm not saying that as an opinion. I mean, I'm just saying it as history. They have gone against their word over and over and over again. So I can see that there's going to be big problems in Afghanistan once the United States leaves.
Okay, let's wait. All right, now let's go to Mirna of Manila. All right. Burning bodies in India parking lot is scary and depressing to watch. What do you think Philippine government should do, and even individual Filipinos?
Well, India has been hitting the 300,000 case per day mark. The crematoriums are like running day and night trying to deal with all the bodies. So, and reporters are saying, the government is releasing the counts on the bodies, and the reporters are saying, well, wait a second, we're standing right here. And, the crematorium is saying, well, we had 20 bodies today, and the reporters are like, we're standing right here. We can count them. So, a lot of people are saying that the government is way undercounting the number of cases and the number of people that are dying. They say they aren't, but, many reports are saying, you're saying that there's 400 dead per day. It's more like 1,000. It's like in the Philippines. Does anybody believe the numbers in the Philippines? People are saying that it's way undercounted. People are saying it's way overcounted because the hospitals are trying to get money. But, a lot of people are saying that it's way undercounted because people are scared to get tested. They don't want to spend the money. And they're scared that if they do get tested and they are found to be positive, that they're going to be put in the hospital and they're going to spend a lot of money. The same thing we've talked about over and over. So how can we, believe what the actual test numbers are? And this is what worries me about the Philippines. The question was, what do you think the Philippine government should do? And even, individuals in the Philippines. The problem is, what if the numbers are really wrong? And this thing is a lot bigger than the Philippine government thinks it is. And let's say that it's maybe getting to the point where it's on the scale of something like is what is happening in India. But how would we know until the bubble actually bursts? And I think that's what we need to be most concerned about.
Yeah. As a Filipino, we should do whatever we can as an individual. The government, they're trying to do their best, but of course their best is not the best. Okay. So now, for me, what we can contribute as an individual is just do what we know what to do already. We've been talking about it in our show from last year. So we just have to continue what we're doing. Okay. Now, just this morning, I got a call that, one family got infected. Okay. This is just one family. And how many are they? Like 7, 8 of them in the house, right? So if we're going to do what we need, these people, they don't call anymore. They try to call the hospital, but there's no room. There's no,
there's no room.
They just, no room in the hospital. Because it's full. So what can you do? There's no ambulance available because there's a lot. We don't have much. A lot of ambulance already available. So we don't know if the price. The numbers will increase and increase. Then we have a problem. So that's why we just have to take care of our own.
Yeah.
Our own lives.
This is part of what I'm worried about. Is just that the cases are way under what they think they are, and the deaths are way under what they think they are. And if that turns out to be the case, then a couple of months from now, all of a sudden we'll think, oh, you know what? We're doing good. Everything's fine. We're beating the virus. And then it turns out we're not. That there's a lot more cases that are floating around, and the variants and everything are running rampant around the country, and they're in the province, and we don't know it because the testing hasn't been what it needs to be. And I think that's the thing that we need to look at India and say, you know what? This is a very good example of what could happen here.
Yeah.
Because India, you know what the other problem is in India? They don't have oxygen. Oxygen is a big, it's a commodity now because they just don't have tanked oxygen. And those are the things that you can run out of. And, talking about hospital beds and stuff like that. So, I hope that the government here is taking a really good, hard look at India and thinking, oh, you know what? We need to make sure that we avoid this.
Yeah. Well, I think basically Filipinos are watching India. So at least, by watching India, at least we are cautious and we are trying to, not to be like India.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's go to Pastor Ed, our favorite Pastor Ed.
Pastor Ed.
Yeah. Do you think it is good strategy to pressure China to control its aggressiveness in the West Philippine Sea through forum hopping at the UN General Assembly, APEC meeting, and filing a complaint to IJC, this International Justice Court, for non-compliance in the arbitral ruling?
Okay, I think it's the ICJ. I'm not sure. Anyway, all right, let's, President Duterte still seems, as I can see, to have, correct me if I'm wrong, given in to China. I mean, there's been many developments over the past 2 years, but in the end, the president still stands by his reason that we don't want to start a war with China, which, of course, is a concern to many people who are worried that the president is surrendering. He's surrendering Filipino land to the Chinese. And, it's like when your I just remember when I was a kid, it's like when your big sister takes away a toy and you call your mom and your mom comes in and your mom says, okay, give the toy back to Eric. And then mom leaves. So what's going to happen when mom leaves? Then my big sister's going to beat the crap out of me. She's not going to give the toy back.
Take it back to
so, the Philippines won this thing in court. So what does that even mean? The thing that is interesting is that other countries in Southeast Asia have stood up to China and it's worked. But the Philippines has not. They have kind of, sort of, it looks like, kind of given up to the fact that, China is, a big giant. They have a huge military. They have the biggest navy in the world now. And they're like, well, what can we do? We can't fight them. Okay, go ahead and build your military bases there. Oh, by the way, can we have a loan? So, what more can I say? I'm just saying what it looks like to me. I mean, people will debate that, but, what is your take on this, Lali Tolentino, about the fact that it just looks like that the Philippines has just given up?
Well, in my own personal opinion, I don't think we're giving up. We didn't give it up yet. Not yet. That's my personal, because there's so many talks. I'm not so familiar with the laws, but I'm hearing both sides. And the National Security Advisor Esperon said something yesterday that there's some issues. Okay, so I'm not gonna go further with that issue. But then, in my opinion, we just have to, like what they say, let us continue do fishing in our ocean. Okay, and when he says, okay, just continue fishing, we will not back off, we will not leave the ocean, this is ours, this is Philippine Sea. But this is not saying that we're giving the sea to China. Okay, I don't know yet, but I don't know what will happen, because there's a lot of intelligent people talking about this, but I don't know who is the winner yet. I just have to wait for the right time when Duterte leaves the presidency. I don't know what's going to happen. That could be a different argument. So I'll just wait.
Let's see who the next president is, what he's going to do.
Yes. I'll see. Then I can choose between who is better. My opinion only. All right, you guys can have your own opinion as well. Okay, Pastor Ed. Okay, let's go to APEC and UN Assembly. Now, from Maria of Manila. Okay, this is part of this. Philippines tell China to mind its own business over maritime? What do you think?
Well, I mean, does it matter at this point? Does it matter what the Philippines says to China at this point? The Philippines didn't stand up to China before. So I don't think that China is going to take the Philippines very seriously if they make some kind of threat or something. I don't think, and, we didn't talk about this in the previous question, but I'm glad that this person brought it up in this way. It's another way of asking this question is, how is the U.S. going to come into play in all this? Over the last 4,000 years, lands and countries are decided on who has the biggest gun or who has the biggest sword or who has the biggest military. And is it worth it? I mean, sure, okay, the UK, they went through Africa claiming the rights to lands, but in the end, it wasn't worth the headache, and they just ended up leaving. But I mean, this is not that. But, if China wants the Philippines Sea, they'll just take it because the Philippines doesn't have the guns. They don't have the big enough guns to stop China. And the court, what is the court going to do? We'll sanction you. What does China care? They don't care. Go ahead, sanction us. We don't care. There's nothing the Philippines can do, which is what I don't understand the strategy about turning your back on the United States. They are your friend. They will protect you. You even have an agreement that says the United States will protect you. I mean, making these big, grand statements to show how tough you are against the United States, sometimes to me that seems a little foolish. I kind of understand why they do it, but the Philippines doesn't need to do it. They have leverage over the United States. The United States wants to be the friends of the Philippines. It's not like, oh, you know what, we're doing you a favor. No, they want it. They want to be a part of this. So I never understood this anti-American stuff because that is the way you're going to make China do what it's supposed to. What the court says is you get those Americans to stand behind you with their aircraft carriers and their submarines and all this stuff, because China's not going to go up against that. And they're not going to go up against your threats. I mean, if the Philippines makes a threat against China, they're going to yeah, okay, go ahead, threaten us. What do we don't, what are you going to stop sending us mangoes? So, I mean, I think that the Philippines can keep, this is very important in the next 50 years to the Philippines is what happens right now, because this is going to be the difference between the Philippines being a poor country and being a rich country, because right now they have a lot of problems with this COVID virus and what happens to the economy over the next 10 years. But if they get the right people, I think, what is on their land, the Philippine land under the Philippine Sea, is going to be worth enough to turn this country around. Now, here again, I'm not, blowing off steam as my own opinion. This is, people have said this. I'm not the only one. That the Philippines is a very, very valuable country. It's extremely valuable, and they have leverage. They have leverage over the United States, and in some ways they have leverage over China. So, just taking a bunch of loans and going, okay, well, we don't want to have war with them. I think that they need to take a bigger stand against this, because this is the future. This is the future of the children and the children's children in the Philippines, between whether it's going to continue to stay a third world country or it's going to move into the echelons of Japan and Singapore, which I think, according to things that I've read, they could, based on this subject.
Yeah. For me, we just need one good leader to make the right decision in turning our life in the Philippines to be, better, because we have a lot of resources. We have everything in this country.
You do.
And I don't need to say what it is, and a lot of people knows it. So one good leader can change the whole thing.
All right, Lali,
and for my personal opinion is that we need America to back us up. That's all I can say.
And Lali Tolentino, who is that leader?
Maybe you or me.
Yes, I'm sure they're going to elect me for president of the Philippines.
All right, we'll see who will be the next leader. Anyway, let's go to
better chance of winning the lottery and getting struck by lightning. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, let's go to this subject. This is President Biden said in his speech to Congress, "Let's end cancer. It is in our power to do it." Okay. Um, you know, this is for probably another twist of our news today, Eric, is that because I think people forget about it's not only virus who's killing people, right? There's also cancer.
The same old stuff that was killing us before is still killing us.
Yes.
We just got something extra now.
And we know people who get cancer right now.
Yes, we do.
Right? So what can how are you going to, share this cancer story? And what can we say about this?
Well, the person said, they started out by saying that Biden said, let's end cancer. It's in our power to do it. And in my opinion, it is in our power to do it. I think, he wants to start this new health agency for cancer, for ending cancer. He said, we can end cancer. We know how to do it. Yeah, we can. In fact, some people think that we already know how to cure cancer. It's just the drug companies are keeping it locked in a safe and won't tell anybody because they want to sell their drugs. They want to sell their drugs to, for their cancer drugs and make their money back before they give out the cure to cancer. I don't know if that's true. But, if you're thinking about when the United States government wants to get something done, they do it. When we had this virus and Trump was like, oh my God, my hotels are shut down. I need to get a vaccine so we can open my hotels. Boy, they got the vaccine and they got it fast. Yeah, they can do it. If the United States decided not to buy a couple of Patriot missiles one year and they devoted all that money to cancer, what do you bet that cancer will be cured in that year? If that's what they decide to do, they will do it. And I can't believe that at this point, that they do not have the technology to be able to fight this virus. I mean, fight this virus, this sickness, this tumoristic affliction that comes in. How many people in the world? What percentage of people in the world? And it's a lot. And I think that they could do it. I think that they have the money and the resources to do it. They just have to get somebody in the presidency to make them do it. And, you and I have had some experience in watching people pass away from cancer. And what I can't stand is that people pass away from cancer really because they don't have the money to fight it. And I think that is, and I've seen people who have millions of dollars and they die from cancer. I'm not saying whatever, but I have seen people that I know that could have lived longer just because they didn't have the money. And I don't think that you should, in this day and age, that medical care should decide on what status of level of financial means that you have.
Yeah. In my own personal experience is this, like here in the Philippines, my sister had cervical cancer. Because when she hit by this, what do you call this? When they found out that she is stage 4, it's already COVID. So we had a hard time going into the hospital, making an appointment to see a doctor, things like that. Right? So now, even though, like you said, even though other people has money to send their loved ones to the hospital, the problem is there's no room in the hospital.
Yeah, I know.
Because during the time, there's already COVID, right? And the hard part of that is that the doctor tells you that your sister will only live, not too long. Good if she will, live for another 60 days or something. They will tell you right then and there.
Yeah.
They will just predict. If
your sister had 100 million pesos in the bank, do you think the doctor would have said the same thing?
Maybe not. Maybe the doctor will tell me like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, right? Because I know that because I tried to talk to another doctor for another opinion. He asked me several things, and this is like, we need a lot of money to do that kind of test. So he will know in what really state is she curable. It's still, So there are things that hurts me if I look back, because my sister would ask me, please and she's like requesting me. She want to survive. She want to live because she was only like 58 last year.
Yeah, and
before she
cervical
passed.
cancer can be cured. I mean, cervical cancer is one of those, it's not like pancreatic cancer. Cervical cancer can be, people do survive. They survive from that.
Yeah, I know because I know some people who survive with cervical cancer, and my sister can't live just because that time we don't have money anymore because there's so many issues
Yeah, we're in the middle of,
that hurts me up to now.
the coronavirus. It's one of those things like I just feel like sometimes, yes, okay, we need to focus on the coronavirus. But in the meantime, we forgot everything else. We forgot every other problem, all the things that we had before that. And, like I said, people were dying from multiple things before it. It's not like that's going to stop just because of the coronavirus. I and a lot of people criticize me because I talk about socialized medicine, because I think socialized medicine is what every country should have. And I think the world should have it. I think everybody has the right to live. And I think people have the right to medical technology, no matter what your, financial, status is. And I've always said that. And I just, I have watched friends and people that I know and watch what they go through with cancer, and it is a really, really tough thing to watch, because a lot of people, they end up not dying from the cancer, they end up dying from not eating. They just don't want to eat anymore and they just give up. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to watch because like for instance, I used to live in New York, and you see somebody and they're in this hospital and they're dying. And if they could just go down the street a few blocks to a different hospital, I know that they would live. And I think that's one of the things that I hope that Joe Biden will do what he said, and he will start this new health agency, and they will be devoted to just ending cancer.
Yeah, that would be great because when America do that, of course, we at some point we will all benefit when they discover that how to cure cancer, right?
Yeah. I mean, why can't we? We figured out a way to get rid of polio. We figured out a way to get rid of all these, smallpox. Why can't we get rid of this thing? And this whole issue about, that the drug companies have spent years and years making treatments for cancer. And if all of a sudden they came up with a cure for cancer, they would lose billions and billions of dollars. And I just, if I could talk to those people, I would say, sometimes it's worth losing $1 billion over.
Yeah. Well, if you have the heart for people, but some people they're just after the money. They just want to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And like I said before, even you have a lot of money, you cannot bring it to your grave, right?
No, you can't.
You can't. You just leave it with your relatives, and everybody will be fighting over that money. So I hope they will listen to our.
I hope they do.
All right, let's go to Fidel of Santa Rosa. Community pantries spread the whole country. I mean, the Philippines already, but basic health protocol seems to be violated. What can you advise the organizer to prevent the transmission of the virus?
All right,
Are you familiar?
Yes, I actually am. I've been following this a little bit. I followed the story of Patricia Nunn, the furniture designer who started this whole thing back in April, just giving out food to people that need it. She said she was tired of the government's inaction, and she started this movement. And, because the Philippines is going to cross the 1 million case threshold pretty soon. And people need food. And so they were giving out food. Now, anytime you give away something free, then somebody has a problem. And so this has become a whole political issue now about giving out this free food. And, one of the questions that they're talking about, like they're giving out the food, but where they're giving it out, they're giving it out in Bel Air and some of these places that who needs the food? Who needs the food there? Does the maids need it or the drivers need it? I mean, who's poor in those neighborhoods? And those people get to eat at their house anyway. So, there's that criticism. And then the criticism of, well, they're giving out the food, and so they're not following the proper protocols, and people could be getting the virus while they're getting the food. And then there's that whole issue. And then the issue of, the people that are giving out the food are communists. and that they are, giving out propaganda and poisoning people's minds when they're giving out this food. It just makes me, do a face plant because, sometimes it just seems crazy, like you're trying to help people in some way, and then everybody finds a reason that it's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's why in my personal, it was a great and a noble thing to do for, people to, share whatever they can, especially, because they know a lot of Filipinos are hungry, as they say.
Yes.
And the problem now is what, because they've been doing it for how many weeks already? I think the organizer, in my opinion, is that since there's a lot of issue about that, find the right way to just give the food out, right? For example, so like some people are doing, they just collect the food and just hand it over to the to the houses, right? Okay, who are poor among this area, just give them like in a basket or whatever, so they don't need to go to that place to get the food, because that is really scary, because we're trying to avoid the crowd. And how noble what you're doing, because now and this one actress started this, and now there are people who got tested and they're positive, so now they're blaming the actress.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the way it will happen. So
whether those people got it there, whether there's all kinds of things that anytime anybody does anything, there's going to be a way of blaming them for something, because and there's no way to prove it. You can't prove that that's where they got it there. They got it here. You could have got it from anywhere. We none of us can really know exactly where we got it from when we got it. And I just this is one of those things where and correct me if I'm wrong, it's you do something good and then somebody is jealous because you're not focusing on them anymore. You're focusing on this and then what they're not doing. And is that what this has come to?
Yeah, that's the sad part of that. When people, some people get jealous of what you're doing, they will try to destroy you. That's the sad part. So that's why try to think of a different way how you can help. There's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah, because giving out food right now, okay, yeah. I mean, you can't just yell free food, because then you're going to have crowds of people lining up at 5 a.m. to get free food, and then that goes against the protocols of what the MECQ is supposed to be. But right now, this is a time where people like this need to be either praised or helped. If they're doing something wrong, don't come in and say, okay, listen, make it so that they have to stop it because they fear for their life, which is what that woman said. Like, oh, I fear for my life now. It's like, no, this is what we need to be doing. We need to work. We said this last week, that we need to work as a community together to help the people that maybe have a little less than us, because maybe we just have a little bit more. Now is the time where you need to step up and help those people, because the only way we're going to get through this is as a single community. It really is. Yeah. Everybody has a way of helping everybody else out. And unless you're going to end up like India, this is the kind of thing that needs to happen. And I know, some people, they help people. They put food out and then they put cameras around so they can take a picture of themselves giving, poor people food. Okay, fine. Whatever. But at least somebody's getting something to eat. I'm just saying, I think that we need to support these people, because I think it's a good idea. Yeah, maybe it's not organized all that well, but still, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it is. It is a good idea. Helping is the best thing you can do. Anyway, let's go now to Madel of Alabama. Wow, this is a good question for you, Eric. If you are the president of the Philippines, what would you tell the people who doesn't want to be vaccinated? Instead, they prefer to take ivermectin. Interesting.
Well, remember what I said before, when I said if I was the president, I would tell everybody to buy cinder blocks and just cement up their doorways and stay inside for the next year. But that's not going to work. But as far as what this person is asking for all the people who don't want to be vaccinated and instead prefer to take ivermectin, first thing I would say is they spent billions of dollars on this vaccine, developing it, testing it. They've had it under a microscope from the beginning. Everybody is like looking at this thing to make sure the best scientists in the world are working on it. There's multiple studies in regards to its effectiveness, and there's ones that are better, more effective than the others, and they know exactly how much and who those people are, and what kind of people can take it, and what kind of people can't take it, everything that we can possibly think of for a vaccine to be developed in a year, has been put into this vaccine. And they can prove without a shadow of a doubt that if you take this vaccine, your chances of getting the virus are way lessened. Now, ivermectin is a drug developed for animals to ward off parasites. Okay, so let's just look at it here. I know that ivermectin in Australia, they came up with this study that said that it can stop SARS-2 from replicating. However, in order to do that, you have to take a lot of it. And taking a lot of it can be dangerous, and et cetera, et cetera. We've talked about this on the show before. But if you're afraid to take the vaccine and you think that ivermectin is going to replace the vaccine, you would be wrong. Make sure that I got that out right. This is not my opinion. You would be wrong. Ivermectin is not a miracle cure.
Yep.
I'm just saying, only because, and I'm not saying this because I don't like ivermectin or whatever. No, I read every possible thing on this because we've been asked about it so many times on the show. And if you look at all the studies and so forth about this drug, it is not a miracle cure. The vaccine, on a different note, I can explain exactly how it works and exactly how it goes after the viruses and exactly how it keeps you from getting the virus. How do I know that? Man, because the best people in the world have been working on this. And we can say, well, we don't believe the WHO and we don't believe the CDC. Okay, if that's your attitude, then you're being foolish because those are the best people. And, I know that there's politics involved and all these kind of things, but still, for the last 50 years, we believed in these people. We believed in the FDA because the scientists that work for them are really good. And so, you can't just give up on these things just because some doctor said, well, you don't want to believe them. You want to believe me because I believe, I gave this anti-animal parasite drug to my people and they got better. Okay, they may have gotten better, maybe because of the drug, maybe not because of the drug. We don't know because they haven't really studied ivermectin. But, here's what I'm saying is I think now we need to trust somebody. And I think that this virus, this vaccine that we have for the virus is our way out of this thing. And I think people need to take it. I don't think if it was going to kill people, it would have killed people because they've given it to hundreds of millions of people already. And if people were dying left and right, they'd be dead and it'd be all over the news and everybody reported. But that hasn't happened. Why doesn't that happen? Because they tested this thing. They really did. They spent billions of dollars testing it.
Right.
So if you're going to, trust somebody, I think now is a good time to trust them. Yeah.
Not only that, because, the problem here in the Philippines are, the misinformation that they got. So now that's why, a lot of my friends who took the, the vaccine already, we're saying we're good, we're fine, we're alive, and, we're making joke out of that. And I said, it's better to have something than nothing. So instead of taking something which is not yet proven, like that drug, the ivermectin thing, I'm not so sure 100%. I know some people are taking it. I don't know what's going to happen later on. If they're going to, the side effect, they're going to have tail or they have going to have hair. I don't know. So while the vaccine, for me, it's more, I think, more safer than any of those drugs until the time they confirm it. Because at least if something happened, if I'm going to take that medicine, I know whom to blame. Right now, I know whom to blame with this vaccine that I had. So,
yeah. I mean,
right?
when the people who invented ivermectin come out and say, you know what, ivermectin's not for this. We can't tell you to take it for this because we really didn't make it for this. We made it for humans. We made it for topical skin, for skin problems. That's what we made it for. And the fact that it just happens to stop the replication for SARS-2, Okay, that's great and wonderful that they figured that out, but that's not going to stop you from, that's not a cure for the coronavirus. And these people that are saying that are just saying it off the top. They're just, trying to get, more followers. I don't know. This is the same thing that happened before with hydrochloroquine. So, once they have a chance to test ivermectin and do a little bit more research on it, but still, just again to say that it is a drug for parasites in animals. Okay. The other one is a vaccine specifically designed for this virus.
Right.
So if you have a choice between the two, I would say pick the vaccine.
Which I did myself.
I know. Lolly Tolentino has taken the vaccine, and look at Lolly Tolentino. She looks great.
Thank you, Eric. I'll have my second job May 12th, so I'll be waiting.
Yes. So
I'm
there,
excited.
So speaking of things to wait on, we have waited out our time here on the show, and we are out of time again. But Lolly Tolentino, thank you so much. The questions today on the show were great, very interesting subjects, and I'm glad we got a chance to discuss them. Lolly, I will see you next week again here on the show to discuss more questions that our viewers have about things going on around the world.
Sure.
Just waiting for your response there. And I know that you are, you're so taken by the show today, but for all of us here at the World News Jam and DZRJ and RJTV, my name is Eric Lecain with Lolly Tolentino, and we will be back next Sunday. So please join us then to talk about stories going on around the world. And from now till then, everybody, please be safe out there. We'll see you next week.